I'm joined now by author of the New York Times bestseller, Give Me Liberty, Naomi Wolf. Lakita Garth, author of The Naked Truth About Sex, Love, and Relationships, and Scott Phelps, the executive director of the Abstinence and Marriage Education Partnership. Okay, Naomi, what do you think about that? The abstinence programs not working. Are they working or not?
Well, the evidence, the data shows that they're not working. If you get a breakdown of the states that have been foremost in abstinence education, like George Bush's Texas, so those are the same states that are the highest in unwanted pregnancies. And I think that the reason is clear. These numbers don't say that kids are having less sex. They say they're having sex more destructively. They're having sex but not using the condom, not using any contraception. And I think that abstinence education, while I'm all for boundaries, and we can talk about that, it creates a situation which girls especially think, I feel desire, I'm not supposed to feel desire, I've learned about AIDS and STDs and gonorrhea, it's so scary, I'm just going to get drunk, I'm just going to hook up so that I can check out and not be here. And that's when the dangerous behavior, the damaging behavior takes place. We should teach them about desire and responsibility.
Let me just bring Lakita in here for a minute. Do you agree with that, Lakita, what she said?
Well, actually, people talk about the rise in teen pregnancies, but people forget about the previous 15 years before that, when there was actually abstinence funding going, in which it reached an all-time low in a generation of not just sexual activity, but also teen pregnancy. You can actually go back several years when abstinence funding started to get cut, and you will see that when SPRANs and some of these programs started getting cut back, that the rise in teen pregnancy began. But we also forget that it was actually Bill Clinton was the first to give funding for abstinence education. When you're talking about girls and what they do with desire and all these types of things, and I would like to address that point, is that abstinence is really empowerment when we're talking for young ladies. Because the reality is that in our culture of instant gratification and a hedonistic society, we're not actually empowering young women. We're just teaching them to just instantly gratify themselves, like we encourage males, or the expectation of males.
Can I jump
in?
into
And for
that?
me, in negotiating a condom, we need to have girls be able to negotiate more than just a condom,
let's
but
hear
to
from-
actually negotiate some other things.
Thank you. Go ahead, Naomi.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I actually think that we have some common ground, because I actually think that the straight to intercourse model has been terrible for girls. Girls, there's so much pressure to go straight to intercourse without going through first base, second base, third base, and stopping there, which is what my mother's generation used to do.
Yeah.
And that was actually a good model, because there was social constraints not to go straight to intercourse. You could explore your body if you were a girl. You could find out what felt good, and you could learn to say yes and no. And ideally, boys too could learn to say yes and no. So what I actually recommend is that we reteach first base, second base, third base, stop. And I don't know if you agree with that or not, but it is a form of, I guess you could say it's abstinence from intercourse, but it's yes to pleasure and yes to sexuality when it's appropriate.
But you know, the abstinence programs cost, I believe, $150 million they've thrown into the abstinence programs. Just as from a Republican point of view, isn't it a waste of money if it's not working?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, nobody wants to fund programs that don't work. And the reality is very few kids are actually getting the abstinence education programs. All of the federal funds that are available only reach about 8% of the teenagers that are out there. I mean, it's really a thimbleful compared to what they're getting in terms of safe sex messages in schools and through other programs. And actually, when you're talking about abstinence programs, it really is a very well-rounded message. We're talking about avoiding alcohol and tobacco and drugs and all kinds of things that are associated with sexual activity. And what I think kids really need is a cheerleader. Kids want to do well. They don't want their life to end up in a ditch. And what they need is someone to say, you can do it, yes you can. They don't need that, you're going to do it anyway, so here's the contraception. What they need is...
See, that's the flaw in the argument as far as I can see. They're going to do it anyway. Where is the reality of the situation? If you're a young girl and you're sexually active, you might need contraception. You might need a condom. And the points that these people are giving them is, don't do it. Well, I'm doing it. Is the answer. I'm doing it.
Joy, the reality is that for other behaviors, which we have age limits, such as drinking, smoking, you can't do any of those until you're 21 in most states.
They do it
reality
anyway.
is that
and they do that also,
you're right.
Lakeisha.
You're right. They don't. Some of them do, but the standard is the expectations that you should not do this, because nothing good comes from a teenager smoking, drinking, or having sex. Nothing. Even Jerry Springer is quoted as saying teens should not be having sex. Now, granted, some are going to have sex, but what you have done is you have lowered the bar for the entire group of young people and just saying, well, you're all going to do it anyway,
But-
so therefore A, B, C,
Yeah,
and
but are
D.
you against
The
teaching them about condoms and contraception
We
also?
actually teach them. Let me clarify the misnomer, because the media has been complicit in this.
Make it quick. I don't have that much time.
Okay, as chairman of the largest abstinence education organization on the planet, abstinence only does not mean abstinence is the only thing that is taught. Scott can tell you, young people learn about contraception, but they learn that the best choice is to abstain and focus your energies on
abstain
that.
from- can I
Abstinence is the
jump in?
only 100%
I just need to jump
way
in. I have to
protect
say-
yourself from STDs and pregnancy.
Okay,
It's
I'm not
simple
the
as that.
chairman of a giant organization. I'm the mother of a 14-year-old daughter. And I think that to just say, well, you know, the best thing is no sexual activity at all until you are married is
Okay, but
just
now
let
you
me
need to
bear
define-
with me.
you define
bear
that.
with me. Well, I think we could define it. I think it would be great to teach what I call sexual gradualism, what I mentioned before. But that said, were you guys sexually abstinent till marriage? Scott?
Yes, I was. I was a virgin when I got married, and it really wasn't that hard. It wasn't that hard
Really?
at all, because I actually had standards, and unqualified applicants need not apply. Because as a president and CEO of my company, you have to fill in an application just to clean my toilet. Most girls are not given that requirement just to take off your clothes and have
Right.
sex.
So
it
is
does
it-
not
am
make
I
sense.
hearing her
How about you,
correctly
Scott?
that you?
How about me what?
Were you sexually abstinent until you were married?
First of all, my subjective experience doesn't have anything to
has
do with the
nothing
fact
to
of
do
the
I
reality.
actually think it's very important because we're telling kids to do something we're not willing to do or able to do.
But am I understanding correctly?
I
the
agree,
abstinence
which is why we should not put Bristol Palin as a spokesperson for abstinence.
Well,
I
that
got
is-
it.
that-
You know,
We're all-
we
all
didn't name
over
her as that.
yeah, the moose is out of the barn, as they say.
Get someone who succeeded in it. I want financial advice from the wealthiest man in the world. I don't want financial advice from the
But
man
am
who
I
just
to
got sent
understand?
from Madoff.
All right, but the abstinence programs do teach to use protection also. If you are
Yeah, you
sexually
guys are
active,
being a little
that's
bit
the part
unclear
I'm-
about
I'm
what the
confused
messaging
The
is.
about.
safest, healthiest, best message for sexually active teens is you don't have to keep going down that path.
Yeah, we
and
know
our
that.
most
Better way
responsive,
We know
listen,
that. But you know, you give a
Then-
seatbelt to a kid in
Yeah.
the car. Why not give a condom when they're in the back of the car?
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere. We've got more to talk
Because
about.
the
Back in a
vast
minute.
majority-
Hang on, Lakeisha. I'm back with my panel. We're talking teen pregnancy and abstinence education, and you two are getting into an argument about personal
I was
Sorry,
saying-
we're
I
having
was
a
saying I
wonderful
think it's-
discussion, but
I
here's the
agree.
point.
So
Lakita, hold on a
I'm
second,
the
hold on a
most
second.
qualified person on here to talk about
Yeah,
abstinence because
okay.
I actually did it. So I
Okay.
can tell you how to do it.
Okay, wait a second. Hang on. Hang on. Go ahead.
The point is that everything that we teach is objectively factual, research-based. It has nothing to do with personal subjective experience. I don't go in a classroom and talk to kids about what I did or didn't do so much as I want to tell them what is the objective fact. Waiting until they're married to have sex is the safest, healthiest choice. We right now are at a 40% out-of-wedlock birth rate. We're 5 years away from a 50% out-of-wedlock birth rate. We must teach this generation that marriage matters, and you should wait until you're married to have sex and to have children. It's a
Scott,
critical message.
Now, when you
It's
say-
an objective
when you
message.
say sex education, are you talking about intercourse specifically? Because a lot of these
We're talking
girls,
about all types of sexual
a lot
activity.
of these kids are doing
Because what
oral
Naomi
and
is
other
talking about
because
is
they think that what you're saying is intercourse only.
Yeah, and what
so a
Naomi
lot of
is-
STDs are increasing because of that.
I
That's
say
right.
bring back petting. Petting was
Yeah,
safe,
I
it was
loved
healthy,
petting.
it was
I love
good for you,
petting
it
now.
felt good. You know, and if you tell me,
I would be a virgin again just for the fun of it, but that's not the way girls
And
are
I can
thinking.
tell you about being a virgin. And when this show is finished, my husband and I have a lot of lost time to make up for because I actually waited. Now let's get back to what
Listen,
Lakita,
Naomi
Naomi said.
that
Naomi
doesn't
makes a
always
lot of
work,
valid
okay?
points,
I
but
waited
the reality
also,
is,
and it didn't work.
But you
I'm
know what?
divorced.
It really wasn't. But you know what? It wasn't that hard. It was not that hard to wait. And that is because what I
hard
was
to
taught,
wait.
the very thing that we were taught. Naomi's talking about what about the kids who are sexually active? Well, actually, Eunice Kennedy Shriver herself, in a study that was conducted in Atlanta, Georgia, the vast majority, like 2/3 of girls who had had sex, regret that they had had sex and wish they had waited, but nobody told them.
Now,
So we're not even looking at the cues from those.
Wait a
who
second.
had
guys are
sex.
Hold
talking
on,
so
hold
much.
on.
I have to tell you, if you look at the data that I examined in my book, Promiscuities, which is about sexual maturation among teenage girls in Northern Europe, where they teach girls about desire. Girls don't learn where their clitorises are in sex education classes here. Men learn, boys learn about erections and ejaculations. Girls don't learn the first thing about how to pleasure themselves so that they can wait, for God's sake. But in Northern Europe, I just want to say the rates of unwanted pregnancy are lower. Girls know about their bodies, about desire, and how to take responsibility for their sexual lives.
Nobody is against
Wait a minute,
that,
Lakita,
Naomi.
hold on.
Nobody is
hold
against
on,
that.
Lakita. You know, what we're saying is teach abstinence, but teach the rest of it too. Teach
They're
everything.
they're getting the rest of it.
Don't just say abstinence is the way to go when it's not the only way to go.
The reason for abstinence
Good,
education.
well said.
Thank you.
New policy.
Thank you. The reason for abstinence education is because they were only getting the other stuff. Teens are learning about contraception in schools, and abstinence doesn't preclude that. The abstinence programs are to say there's also another choice. We believe that kids should have a choice, and kids don't feel that. Kids today are so pressured. 10 hours of media per day. 10 hours of media per day telling them, go do it. What we think kids need is the opportunity to say, you know what, you don't have to give in to that pressure. You can stand up to that. So what we're teaching them is how. That's exactly what abstinence education is.
Okay,
Beautiful.
I've got to
So
go.
we're all one happy
You
family.
two take it outside. Thanks everyone for joining me tonight. And thank you for watching. Goodbye, Lakita. Good night, everybody.